Welcome to our show, Obsessed, where we talk about cryptids, mythology, folklore, and whatever else we're currently obsessed with. I'm Caitlin Palmer.
And I'm Clay.
And we're
Obsessed.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Obsessed with the Palmers. Clay, I've been told that you have a good story for me today.
Oh, you just want me to jump right into reading the story?
Well, so it's going to be something nautical and fun with mermaids?
No.
Oh.
At least no to the last part.
Well, I love mermaids, and I feel like mermaids.
What we have to talk about today is not unlike a mermaid, and was often confused with a mermaid.
We're talking about manatees?
No, we're not talking about manatees.
Dugongs?
Not this time.
Oh.
Manatees are their own special creature. We'll cover them. They don't really exist. Don't let the major news outlets lie to you. They are, in fact, cryptids. They're made-up animals. Look at them.
I'm part of a page of This is certainly a cryptid of some kind. And manatees are definitely
Manatees
on there.
and platypuses are on there.
Definitely on there.
Let me tell you a story that might help distinguish between mermaids and what we're talking about today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm down. Let's go.
Ever since Atticus was a young boy, he always wanted to sail the Mediterranean Sea as his father did. To see the sea for what it truly was. The many days gone by, waving goodbye to his father as he disappeared into the horizon, always gripped young Atticus. What wonderful mysteries lied beyond that great rippling barrier that his father had seen. The tales he told were ones of great dunes of sand, and orange cats the size of a horse, of shimmering golden cities amongst the desert sands, and forests where it always rained. Years ago his father had left for one of his grand adventures, and never returned. Off to sell his barrels of aged wine and pottery that Atticus and his mother had always made, as they always do while awaiting his arrival. The years had been hard. For the first year his mother would wait at the docks, long into the night, for the husband that would never return. But as time marched on, she'd appear less and less, and with each passing year she'd grow weaker and more frail. Atticus had worked what jobs he could to fill the financial hole left by his father, but would always save a coin for himself. Now at the age of 15, he was a man. His savings had taken the shape of a small but beautiful kaiki, a boat he could cross the sea to trade his goods as his father once did. The day he set sail, he left behind a note that simply read, "Off to work." The open sea was as extraordinary as he had always dreamed. The air was crisp and cool, the waves lapped musically against his hull, and the sky stretched off as if to race the sea to a point unknown. A place far off where sky and sea become one, filled with treasures and sights never seen. But he would see it. He knew he would. It was now, so many days into his journey, that he heard a sound. The gentle strums of a harp. He scanned the horizon for some sign of life, but none did he see. He hauled at his ropes, and he heaved against his rudder to follow the fleeting sound, to find this mystical force. He almost felt afraid, but of what he did not know. Something deep down that made his heart beat rapidly, and his breath draw short. It was like this chance would pass him by, and he'd never again hear that melody. Already now, its memories were beginning to fade. That's when he saw her. A lone woman atop a craggy rock, jutting up from the ocean like a beast's horn. She strummed her harp and wept woefully as his kaiki drew near and the skies grew darker. He called out to her, but to no avail. She simply played and wept, her tears raining down into the foaming waves, lapped up by the hungry, churning sea as the skies grew yet darker still. Atticus did not realize it, not until he was falling. But he had climbed atop the railing of his ship, and had stepped out into those ravenous waves and plunged into its chilly depths. As he sunk further away from its surface, her eyes finally met his. A wide, toothy grin, still locked behind flowing tears, a stony gaze, and feathered wings, like that of a dove's. He did not feel worry or panic. He did not feel fear or remorse, only blissful peace, and the many arms that reached up from behind his sinking form to wrap around his chest and neck to pull him further down into the watery dark. Ever since Atticus was a young boy, he'd always wanted to sail the Mediterranean Sea as his father did, to see the sea for what it truly was, to discover wondrous creatures, to find where his father had gone. And now, as he sinks to his doom, he can't help but to think of that melancholy tune, and that all of his dreams had come true.
I hated that story! You're so lame!
I'm lame?
Bonus points if you know what that's from. No, that wasn't lame at all. That was really, really freaking good. So, you're not telling me about whimsical mermaids. You're not even telling me about my favorite, which is the Hans Christian Andersen terrible, sad mermaid. We're talking about sirens.
From Greek mythology.
We love it. We love a Greek mythos.
You have probably heard the term siren many times before, but we are talking about sirens from the Greek mythos, particularly as those mentioned in the epic poem, Homer's Odyssey.
Ooh.
So they are not described by Homer. They are later described in Argonautica as being part bird and part woman. Argonautica being the story of Jason and the Argonauts.
Argonauts, right.
So before, they didn't have any sort of description. They were just kind of described as women.
Beautiful women, right.
Beautiful women. But later in Jason and the Argonauts, they are described as being a part woman and part bird. And this meant several things. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be like a mermaid or like a typical depiction of an angel even. You had some pretty terrible looking sirens that were drawn in.
Well, why were they part bird? Do they ever talk about that?
Well, several centuries later, they were more specifically depicted as being a human-headed bird.
Oh.
Which is terrible. So imagine like a big chicken, but with a human head. This is a very manticore sort of situation.
I picture
I don't like
a big fat barn chicken.
Yeah, kind of. It's in that old style of drawing, you know, in the typical like bestiaries that they would do.
Oh no.
Yeah, they're pretty unfortunate.
Well, good job to Final Fantasy for giving their siren summon like wings and stuff. I always just thought it was...
It gave her wings on her head, which I really liked.
Yeah, it was really pretty.
But this typical depiction of a human-headed bird led to some confusion with the Greek and Roman harpy.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask about the harpy, too.
Another bird-woman hybrid, which...
Bird-woman!
You know, if I had a nickel for every bird-woman hybrid there was, I would have 2 nickels, but it would be weird that I had 2.
Yeah, like, that's not a lot, but it's still weird to have 2.
We'll talk about harpies another time.
That's for another day.
Yeah, they're a little less interesting. They're terrible.
Harpy from The Last Unicorn was freaking scary.
In the Odyssey, the sirens sing a song that drives men mad, causing them to drown themselves. The sailors in the story...
I know that song.
The sirens the sailors clog their ears with beeswax.
Right.
But Odysseus has his men tie him to the mast and not clog his ears so that he can hear the song.
There is an old cartoon, and it started out with, like, this owl, and he's telling the story of the Odyssey, and I wanted to watch it so bad in class, and everyone was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, and then we played it, and it started to sound, like, really stupid, like the cute little owls, and they're like, I'm gonna tell you a story, and they're like, what the hell, Caitlin? And I'm like, no, just give it a minute, and then it was good.
And then everyone clapped for how good it was.
They did, and they still remember it to this day.
They remember how they listened to you.
Yeah. If only. Oh, if only.
So Odysseus wanted to hear the song.
Right.
So he had his men tie him to the mast and not release him under any circumstances.
Yeah.
And in the story, you know, he like begs and pleads almost immediately for them to let him go.
Right.
They refuse until they notice like a change in his behavior.
As he relaxes.
Yeah, as they've passed by these sirens. Then they let him go. But then he gets to have heard the melody of a siren and not died, which is kind of not something that really happens.
It does not.
But this story, particularly this part of the story, led to the term siren song, which Merriam-Webster defines it as an alluring utterance or appeal, especially one that is seductive or deceptive. Usually the term refers to not only something that is alluring, but harbors a negative conclusion or danger.
Yeah.
So something enticing that lulls you into some sort of trap or your doom.
And then doesn't necessarily kill you, but yeah, harms you.
Often.
Well, if it's a siren, you're gonna die.
In this case, yeah. If it was an actual siren song, it would lure you into death. In later centuries, sirens were depicted as having a fish's lower body, which had led to some confusion with mermaids, especially the whole luring sailors to a watery grave bit.
Right.
Gets kind of recycled around.
Sure.
During the 9th century, however, sirens underwent another change, keeping the woman's top half and a fish's tail, but then they would sometimes receive, like, bird-like wings and feet.
Ooh, that's pretty. So wait, they have a fish tail and bird feet?
Yes.
Okay, how does that work?
Well,
where are the feet?
There was a whole bunch of different things. Some of the older arts had, like a typical woman upper half.
Right.
Then just like a fish's tail. Then literal chicken legs coming out the bottom of them.
Like at the bottom of the tail?
Yeah. And then some others just had like a human body, but with bird legs and wings instead of arms, and then like a fish's tail coming out the back. So there's a bunch of different things.
Okay, so
nobody could decide on how sirens
looked. Well, if you
looked.
see them, you die.
Well, so I guess that's fair, yeah. They could claim that is the reason.
You know, a lot of the mermaid sightings were proven to be manatees. That means that there's still hope for big queens like me.
People were like, yes.
Oh,
to a manatee. I've always described, and I don't know if I've said this on this podcast or not, but I've definitely said it a lot of times. When God created the platypus, he was like, I've got a bunch of leftover, like, parts.
Yeah.
And he just, like, slapped them together.
Right.
And he's like, done. I got this weird thing. And set it loose. And then he turned around and was like, oh no. I had, like, one basic body type left. And he's like, well, I gotta make the best I can with this one part. So you got this living potato creature called the manatee that swims around. And
I love manatees. They're so cool. I love potatoes.
Fills no ecological niche.
It's cute.
I like manatees. I do. And the world will be a sadder place when they eventually get themselves all killed.
Oh, no.
Because they like to swim directly into boat propellers.
Oh, manatees. That's enough of that.
No more about manatees. Sirens appear in many stories. One such story is of a singing contest that Hera, the Greek queen of gods, put on with the sirens competing against her muses.
Ooh.
You know, like Disney's Hercules, the muses.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so a singing contest between them and the muses.
Well, the muses are going to win.
After winning, the muses ripped out all the sirens' feathers, turning them into crowns. And the sirens, so dismayed at losing, fell into the sea, which their bodies became islands. A specific set of islands, which I don't think actually exist. I think they're just part of, like, the mythos.
Probably, but that's really cool. Like, imagine just being so upset that you lost. You're like, you know what? I'm going to just go be an island.
Well, they, like, cried and, like, cast themselves off of Mount Olympus or whatever, and
yeah,
it landed in the sea.
That's a weekly occurrence here.
It has big like Howl's Moving Castle vibes. Like,
I love it.
If I can't be beautiful, what's the point?
What's the point?
Well, you know, I was gonna bring up at some point Pliny the Elder.
Oh yeah, we love Pliny.
Pliny
a member of our family.
Yeah, we all love Pliny in this house. He's a giant dumbass.
He is. He's like that uncle that you're kind of ashamed of, but you secretly like. You know, like, you're kind of rooting for him, but you're like, don't take anything he says seriously.
No, don't listen to Pliny. He says a lot of stuff that is untrue, particularly about medicine.
Particularly,
He definitely thought he was big shit, and the smartest man alive.
I'm starting to like him less.
Every time we talk about him.
About Pliny, I'm like, oh, I love Pliny. Fuck Pliny.
So he had some input on sirens, of course. He claims that they're a fairy tale. A rare Pliny win on this one. He's like, oh, wow. Yeah, they ain't real. So
go Pliny, I'm proud of you.
He got one right.
Well, you know what else would have fixed it? Mouse guts.
Probably, yeah.
Mouse guts. For Pliny the Elder, mouse guts fixed everything.
That was like his go-to?
It was. Like most things, mouse guts.
Man, I really hate Pliny.
You could eat it. You could apply it as a salve.
Oh, God.
You could do mouse guts. That's something Big Pharma doesn't want you to know.
About the mouse guts?
Yeah.
So Pliny had to say, quote, from one of his books, although Dinon, the father of Clyricus, a celebrated writer, asserts that they exist in India and that they charm men by their song and, having first lulled them to sleep, tear them to pieces.
Oh, I love that.
So this was... I think Pliny probably did think they existed, but this dude, Dinon, or Dinon, I'm not sure what his name is, how it's pronounced, I think he just hated him so much.
Right, he just had to oppose
that
it.
guy's dumb and I'm smart. Sirens don't exist, even if they sound wicked cool.
And they do sound wicked cool.
Wicked cool. And, you know, maybe they exist in India. I don't know. I haven't been there.
Oh, India.
I kind of do want to go to India.
I do want to go to India. I just want to eat there.
Yeah.
Every day. For the rest of my life.
We really like Indian food
we
in this
love
house.
Indian food. Oh, we love it so much.
I don't know if they would have less spicy Indian food for you. I
Oh,
wonder if that's
true, because I have a baby gut.
Yeah, I wonder if that's just an Americanized
It
version of
probably
Indian
is.
food.
Like, honestly, like, the medium that I get is probably baby food over
Right,
there.
they might go balls to the wall with the spice all the time.
Probably so. That's like their thing.
I imagine that the Indian spicy choice that I always get is authentically Indian spicy.
Yeah.
Because one of the dudes there, we asked him what spice level he gets. He's like, just spicy. Not Indian spicy. He said too spicy.
One time I ordered spicy because I thought I could handle it, and then I couldn't eat it. So, you know, I left my plate and I didn't eat it. And he was like, was it okay? I said, yeah, it was just too spicy for me. He's like, well, you said spicy. I said, no, I did. I did say
yeah,
spicy.
He's like, yeah, I did. I messed up.
I did. That was me. That was a problem on Kaylin. I couldn't handle it. I thought I could. No, it's like, nothing wrong with it. I just couldn't handle it. He's like, you said spicy. And I laughed.
He gave her shit.
He did. And I
Every time that we walk back in there, she'll ask for food, and he's like, you want spicy?
And
she's
I'm like, no.
He knows my order.
He does. It's great. We're regulars somewhere, Clay. That's all I've ever wanted out of life. I feel like we've made it, you know?
So, Pliny talked about lulling people to sleep and tearing them to pieces. Well, rather, he quoted a guy who talked about sirens lulling people to sleep and then tearing them to pieces.
At least they lull them to sleep first and then tear them
They probably
apart.
wake up halfway through. But this is a common belief or theory that suggests a siren's man-eating nature, based on Circe's description of them in the Odyssey. Quote, lulling there in their meadow, round them heaps of corpses rotting away, rags of skin shriveling on their bones.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, that was definitely one of those like quotes. I was like, I gotta put that quote in there.
That's
that one's
a
good.
good one.
That's a
you know
good
how
one.
bad that stinks?
God. Round them heaps of corpses rotting away, rags of skin shriveling on their bones.
Oh, that's so good.
That's so metal.
That's so metal. That's like a Metallica cover.
Yeah. There's a particularly chilling quote on the wiki page in reference to the linear notes to Fresh Air 6 by Jim Sherry, which I believe is a book. That I can only assume that it is a book.
Clay doesn't know how to read.
Actually, I think it might be a song. Quote, that the sailor's flesh is rotting away suggests it has not been eaten. It has been suggested that, with their feathers stolen, their divine nature kept them alive, but unable to provide food for their visitors who starved to death by refusing to leave. So that puts a sad spin on it, that they play this song and it tricks people into climbing atop their little pinnacle of ground amidst the ocean. And them being divine creatures cannot die from something like starvation, but the people that they have entranced most certainly can.
Oh, that's awful.
It's pretty terrible.
So they just get up there and starve to death.
Right, because they refuse to leave.
Well, and yeah, that makes sense, because, you do hear about them being lured to their death, but you never hear about them being eaten.
Necessarily torn to pieces, yeah.
Right. It kind of just ends there.
Even
that
going
you crash
back,
your ship and you die.
Even going back to that quote from the Odyssey, it doesn't specifically say that the bodies were like damaged or destroyed or eaten or anything, just lolling there in their meadow, round them heaps of corpses rotting away, rags of skin shriveling on their bones. Nothing necessarily about them being killed. They could have just
starved to death
because they refused to leave. There is a bit in the myth. It is not covered in the Odyssey as far as I can tell, but in some other myth that if you hear the siren song but are not killed by them, they die.
Oh, wow.
If you escape after hearing the song, that they die. So if that, being true in this sense, then Odysseus would have killed those sirens.
That's true. So if you hear the siren song, in this theory, you hear the song, you don't die, they die. Like, if you don't crash
Right,
the
if
ship,
you escape, then they die.
Would, like, all of them die, or would just one of them die?
I guess any one song that you heard, if you heard multiple songs, then I guess each one of them.
Oh, that makes sense.
Not sure. It's kind of hard to test this theory.
Yeah. Somebody go do it in the name of science.
Right, yeah, figure it out for us.
Figure it out for us. Do we know why? Okay, so the
Do we know
reason
why
has
they die?
always... Well, no, why do they lure men to their death? Is it just for funsies?
Never really explained. No intentions behind the sirens. In
Right.
fact, people can't really decide on whether they lure you to feed upon you or if luring you is a byproduct of them just sort of existing.
Sure.
I mean, if they were good enough to compete in a god's music battle kind of thing, then it's probably so good music that if a mortal heard it, they would be enticed beyond their capabilities.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm easily, musicals are my thing, so.
So what I think is that their music being divine like them, if you hear it and aren't enticed, pulled over to them, it's like you are carrying that with you. You kind of take it away from them.
Oh.
Like their music has been stolen by you hearing it and not dying.
Huh.
Because Odysseus, he wanted to have memory of that song, so he took it.
Yeah. Well,
That's what I think anyway. There's nothing to suggest that, but
that makes sense though.
it feels right.
It does. It feels good.
So in Christian belief, sirens were repurposed as an allegory for temptation, the sin of lust,
love temptation. Ooh, we love lust.
and the dangers of women,
Oh, we are dangerous.
with much more focus being placed on physical beauty and usually being a symbol of prostitution. So
Leading men to sin.
the idea of these particularly beautiful women was something that sort of came around when Christians got a hold of it.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it was perverted in its own way to be very simplistic in that, and not like these fallen godly creatures who played music so beautiful it would pull you in, but rather just and they wanted to bang the sirens and that's why they died. They gave in to lust and they drowned.
Yep.
They drowned in sin.
Like every Catholic homily I ever attended. No offense to other Catholics. I'm sure there's good Catholics.
But the love of Jesus is like a breath of air that will keep you from drowning in sin. You know how it goes.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're at today.
Right.
Now anytime you hear the term siren, it is talking about particularly a beautiful woman.
Right.
Who sort of tricks men into...
Yeah, it's kind of that two-faced, they come across this beautiful, wonderful thing, but then they're actually this evil twist.
Yeah, no...
That's women.
Yeah, that's women. At least as far as it's concerned with ancient myth and that kind of thing. Everything... Women didn't really win very much back in the day with their gender-specific cryptids.
Yeah, but we see
because we talked about harpy, and harpy is definitely a term you would use at a shrieking older woman.
It's kind of a derogatory term towards women. Yeah, definitely.
A woman who complains a lot, and it's like a harpy.
Harpy.
Yeah, and it's just God dang, can they not? Can we have one? You don't really hear dudes being called a manticore.
Yeah.
You're
being such a manticore today. We call them ogres.
Yeah, ogres, I guess. There's ogres, but that's one of so many.
That's fair.
One of so many.
But we see this quip over and over of beautiful women luring men. A lot of your old ghost stories and tales from Appalachia, they'll disguise themselves as women.
I thought you were going to say Tales from the Crypt. I was getting really excited. I was
Tales
like,
from the
oh
Crypt.
yeah.
I've actually never seen that.
You've never... Alright, well, I guess I'm going to have to show you Tales from the Crypt. How have you never seen Tales from the Crypt?
I know, it's right up my alley. I only just recently saw Beetlejuice.
Yeah, that's true. I did make you watch Beetlejuice.
You did. But we see that over and over, things disguising themselves to lure you.
Right.
Whether it's a beautiful woman, a child, whatever it is. They almost sound fae-like in that.
Yeah, kinda. Anything that tricks you sounds very fairy-like.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, succubi, the plural of succubus.
Yeah, we love that.
Succubi.
Incubus.
Well, see, but that's what I was gonna say. Like, you hear about, succubus all the time. You might even hear somebody refer to a woman as a succubus.
Right.
Being a woman that, like, tricks you into, loving her or being with her and then drains something from you, your money or your happiness or your life, whatever it is.
All three if you're lucky.
All three, yeah. So you hear that all the time, but you never hear about an incubus, the male version of a succubus.
I actually did just listen to this podcast, and it was about an alleged haunting. I'm pretty sure it was bullshit, but it was this family that was being molested essentially by
an incubus.
Incubus.
Oh,
Incubi.
no.
Yep.
That's kind of what they did.
Yeah. It's really sad, but the more I listened to it, the more I was kind of like, I don't know, man. I think they just wanted, because they were in like financial distress,
right?
And they were getting a lot of press deals from this.
I was gonna say, we can't talk about other podcasts on our podcast.
We can't.
Yeah, we don't need people listening to other podcasts.
No, you don't need other podcasts. You have this one. Back in my day, we had no podcasts. Yeah. We were grateful.
We were grateful to have nothing to listen to.
We walked back and forth to listen to podcasts, uphill, both ways.
There is a band named Incubus. It's like a 90s butt rock.
Butt rock.
It's not good music. Don't go look up Incubus. If you're a fan of Incubus, I don't know what to tell you, man. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing when you say you like Incubus, when you have decided to become an Incubus fan.
Oh, it's a cool name, though.
It is a cool name.
So now...
They got like 2 good songs, I guess.
So this episode for me has been an emotional roller coaster, because I was like, mermaids, death. And now I'm like, feminism.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to talk about any, like, female... exclusive cryptid without it being tied back into how that has been.
Oh, we gotta do better, guys.
How that has been perverted.
It has. You can't just have a pretty mermaid.
No, it's always got to be like, and we'll use this term as a derogatory term against a subset of women.
Right. Well,
for assumed crimes.
I hated that. It's always women.
It's always women. Fair.
It goes back to Lilith and Eve and all of that. And that's just...
And witchcraft.
And witchcraft.
There were dude witches, but you never heard about the dude witches. Always the women witches.
Always.
That's probably because, like, one of the signs of being a witch was that you were reading.
That's true, and men don't know how to read, so...
Well, no, I meant, like, the men could read, but, like, if you saw a woman reading, it's like, well, that's a witch.
Right. And now I don't know any women who don't read, so...
You gotta make up for lost time.
You gotta make up for lost time, girls. There was a long time where we couldn't do jack squat.
So, sirens aren't really in a lot of media nowadays, which feels strange.
Yeah, I know. I feel like they should be in more.
They feel sort of like a general staple for, like, mythos.
But everyone knows of a siren, too. Like, find someone who's
never
heard of a siren.
Anyone can tell you pretty much what a siren is. Maybe not exactly what all, their history involves or what entails it. But if you mention a siren, people have a general idea of what a siren is.
Right.
But I'm trying to think even right now. I didn't necessarily go look this up, but I don't know what all I would have really pulled from it. But things that I have seen a siren in, and we talked about Final Fantasy VIII.
Right.
Siren as a character was a summon, which it's the only Final Fantasy she's appeared in besides 14, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Final Fantasy 14, where she was a dungeon boss.
A beautiful dungeon boss.
Where she was like a woman.
You think other women are beautiful?
Where she was like a typical attractive woman.
You think other women are attractive?
With wings on her head, like big birded wings.
Sorry, I don't have wings on my head.
She had a harp.
Sorry, I don't have a harp.
And then, like a mermaid, she had like starfish attached to her boobs, so you couldn't see those.
Get it, girl.
In 8, you could see her bush.
You could. You straight up could.
They did not. I don't know how that made it past the censors, but there it was.
Yeah.
They hunted a siren in Supernatural.
Oh yeah, they did.
They did. It was like a toss away sort of filler episode.
Yeah.
Monster of the Week kind of thing. That's how the show was set up. But
so good.
that was cool because it was like they appeared like a beautiful woman normally, but when you saw them in a mirror or something, they were just like this grotesque.
Right.
Like they had no arms or legs really. They were like a big human face caterpillar.
Right.
Pretty terrifying. In Borderlands, there are another video game. There are certain people who are sirens who are always a woman, and there can only be 6 of them in the galaxy at a time. But they were like powerful. They had powerful psychic abilities and stuff, which was pretty neat. And I think that's about it for things I've seen sirens in. Well, they're in The Witcher. They're not called sirens. They're something else, but they're obviously sirens.
Right,
They have the mermaid body.
Yeah.
They have wings on their backs, and they are just like these shrieking, terrible monsters that attack you if you go too far out in the water.
I wonder if a woman heard a siren, if it would be a beautiful song, or if it would be like a shrieking. Like, is it men specific that hear the beautiful song?
I never saw anything in any of these stories about a woman falling prey to the siren song. It's always been men. But, to be fair, you run into a siren out in the ocean, and women weren't allowed on boats.
That's true.
Because that was bad luck.
Because we'd sink them.
Yeah, and sink them.
With our vaginas.
With the power of your vaginas. They'd sink the boat.
Yeah,
it was considered bad luck, so women didn't go sailing for the most part. Not to say that they didn't.
Right.
But for the most part, yeah. Sailors were typically...
It was a men's, yeah.
Yeah, it was a men's deal.
Sure.
Men did that. A woman probably wouldn't want to be a sailor because she'd be surrounded by those dudes all the time.
Oh, I would get so seasick. I get seasick on a pool floaty.
I don't know. I went on a cruise one time and I got a little seasick.
Yeah, that doesn't appeal to me, honestly.
But that's like a cruise ship. I imagine like a rickety old boat would be worse.
Yeah, that'd be very, very bad. You know who else is a siren that I found out about just a minute ago, Clay?
When you Googled it?
When I Googled it, is the Starbucks logo. I always thought it was a mermaid. It's a siren. And this is a real quote from Starbucks.com. The siren is like a super mermaid.
The super mermaid.
A mermaid with one tail, A mermaid with one tail is just a plain old mermaid. Sorry, Ariel. But a siren is often depicted with 2 tails. She might seem like an unusual choice for the face of a coffee company, but there's a pretty interesting backstory to how and why the siren became to be. It was 1971.
Oh, you're reading this whole quote, huh?
No, I don't have to. But you should look it up. It's interesting.
No, I really like that they're super mermaids.
They're super mermaids. But it makes sense because look, I see the siren call of the Starbucks logo, and your girl's gonna crash into something trying to get over there.
Oh, man. Man, I bet like the turbo Christians are eating this up though, because like we already talked about how sirens are viewed in Christianity,
right?
And there was definitely a movement not too long ago where a lot of ultra Christians were like denouncing Starbucks and saying that it was like a devil cult that was tricking people into consuming their products and that whole thing. Did you not hear about that?
You know, I probably did and just didn't pay attention to it, honestly.
Well, they
Starbucks has done some controversial stuff.
Yeah, they've done some stuff.
That's not what this show is about. I just like their coffee.
They're a corporation. They're evil by nature.
It's fair. It's fair.
But they were pointing out that the logo actually like looked like they named some specific demon.
Oh, because of
whatever
the split, the 2 tails.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like I think it was like whoever the woman was in oh no, I can't think of the name of the city that fell, Babylon.
Oh.
And that was like her leg spread or whatever.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, man, they'd go crazy if it was like, actually, she's a siren. It's like, I knew it! I knew she was evil!
And I want an extra shot of espresso!
I looked up how the Catholic Church feels about sirens, and I just remembered how angry I am about your logo.
But you still drink their coffee, though. It's good.
You also just Googled because you weren't satisfied. You wanted to find male sirens.
I did, and allegedly there are, but they disappeared from textbooks close, not too very long before the females.
Yeah, I think the oldest that I could find of sirens was like 4th century, and you said they disappeared in the 5th.
In the 5th, yeah.
They fell off real quick.
But they're very similar to your females. They're very attractive men with beautiful voices, and they would also lure. And they made another good point in the original translation of the Odyssey. The sirens don't really have a gender.
Yeah, they weren't
just
described at all.
sirens, right. Yeah. But allegedly your females are more common than your males. It's like 1 male to every 2 females of sirens, which there has to be males to make more. I mean, it's just whatever. But yeah.
I think that's all. I think that's all BS. I think that was somebody's fan fiction.
Oh.
They just wanted there to be male sirens.
I did come across one, a girl writing a about male sirens, and I'm like, get it, girl, I'll read it.
But you found a list of possible male sirens in pop culture.
Yes, I did. One of them is Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, because he's part octopus and has a very mesmerizing voice.
That's fair, I guess, but I will say that he was cursed to be that form.
Right, maybe he was cursed by a siren. I don't know.
I mean, maybe. I guess.
I haven't seen that movie.
See how bad it sucks, and they're like, yeah. And he's like, well, I'm not beautiful at all. I got a tentacle face. It's like,
I thought he was handsome.
I thought he was a handsome.
I thought he was, for an octopus guy.
We also said King Triton, and I got upset at this.
Yeah. Another theory is that King Triton from The Little Mermaid is a male siren.
But he's a mermaid. It's
exactly.
The movie is called The Little Mermaid. He gave birth to mermaids.
He didn't.
He's a merman.
Merman, Pop. Merman.
I got the black lung. We are now quoting a movie so old that if you're listening to this, it was likely released before you were born.
We probably made a lot of people really mad with this episode. Sorry, guys.
Go watch Zoolander. It's a good movie.
It's so good. David Bowie was in it.
David Bowie was in it for a short stint.
He was, and that was my favorite part. All right, Clay, let's rate this thing.
So how likely are you to survive an encounter with a siren?
Apparently, I wouldn't even encounter them to begin with, so I feel pretty good about it.
We'll assume that you can be enticed. That you can be enticed by a siren.
Bold of you to assume. Well, it sounds like it's a supernatural pull, and you really, unless you're tied down, you don't have a choice.
Right.
So I would almost certainly fall victim.
That's where you give yourself 1 to 10.
Like in terms of surviving or not surviving?
Yeah, how likely are you to survive? 1 to 10.
Okay. Like a 2.
2?
Yeah. Only if you're there to save me. Then I've got a 10 to survive.
I'm going to give myself a little bit higher because, I mean, Odysseus and them did it pretty easy. They literally just put crap in their ears and they're like, all right, the sirens apparently won't come after you.
Do I know that I'm going to encounter siren, or am I just in the wild and I happen to encounter a siren? Do I have time to prepare? In
the story of the Odyssey,
I'm fine.
They were warned that they would encounter sirens, but they didn't necessarily make preparations for it. They started to hear the song, and they're like, oh, this is that thing they were talking about, so they shoved beeswax in their ears.
Oh, well then in that case I'd be fine.
Yeah, I think if it's not instantaneous, like, oh, I heard the song, I'm done. Yeah. Then, all I gotta do is put my fingers in my ears and scream really loudly until I don't think they're around anymore.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, no, I stand a better chance than that.
I'll split my difference and say 5. Yeah. It really depends on how much time I've got to react to the siren song.
Sure.
Because, like I said, they won't come after you. So it ain't like you gotta worry about, fighting them off or anything.
You fight the ladies off with a stick.
You just gotta not hear them.
Right. Well, you're good at tuning out.
How creepy are sirens? You got not spooky, spoopy. 2 spooky for me, and 3 spooky 5 me.
I'm gonna give them a solid spoop.
A spoop?
They're right between spoop and 2 spooky for me. Only because of that supernatural episode where you see their true face and they're spooky. Underwater stuff hits different. Like when they're above the water, they're fine and beautiful. But then when they go underwater...
Yeah, I will say, if you're playing The Witcher 3 and there are some sirens under the water with you, it is terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
It is terrifying. Especially because you'll sometimes get a zoom-in close-up of what their face looks like. It's horrid.
No thanks.
I will give them a spoopy as well.
All right.
In most of the stories, they are not described as something spooky, but there's always that aspect of something that's beautiful on the outside, but on the inside they're this terrible wretched creature. Yeah. And that's always pretty spooky.
Sure.
Plus being drowned sucks.
Yeah, it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
I almost drowned as a child.
I don't like looking down at water and it like going so far down that it's dark.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's spooky.
I get the call to the abyss.
Specifically.
I do, with water. I'm like, that's terrifying and scary. I almost said Terry, like I tried to combine Terry.
Terrifying and scary into a new word that was called Terry.
It's called Terry.
I got news for you, all the Terrences out there. How likely are sirens to exist?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I think there's spirits that might kind of present like sirens, but sirens themselves being like bird people. No. I'm going to give them like a 2.
Yeah, I'm probably going to give them a 2 too. Honestly, I would give them a 1 if it weren't for them being linked to like the ocean. Anything linked to the ocean is always going to get at least a 1 point bump because of how big and uncharted the ocean is. It's like, well,
I mean, it's
maybe. But yeah, probably not. Anything that's like specifically very human like that is kind of like, yeah.
Right.
But maybe.
It's always
maybe
possible.
like the old depiction or whatever.
Right.
With not a human face, but a human-like face.
Right.
With a weird bird body and
but we didn't have anything to compare it to either, so
yeah, so
it's like the unicorn. They're like, oh yeah, rhino is definitely a unicorn. Well,
God, man, they really they really popped a boner on that one. He's like, yeah, that's a unicorn. It's like, that looks nothing like the cool drawings that you showed me, dude. I was thinking more of like a horse. And it's like, yeah, that's like a horse. And it's like, well, no, but all right.
Armored horse.
How likely is a siren to be an alien? Now this is a good question. I gotta get in the mindset of the History Channel's Ancient Aliens and see what I can
see it, honestly. I could see sirens being an alien.
Yeah. Just like a new form of abduction, like they trick sailors back in the day, and
I could see that.
You're really thinking about it.
I am. That's a possibility, Clay.
I guess the more I think about it, it's like, you know what? Of the things, it would make more sense that it was an alien, I guess.
Right, it would.
I'll give them
otherwise, I kind of write them off as just a cool story.
I'll give them actually, I just thought about it. I'm bumping it back down. I was going to say a 3. I'm bumping it back down to 2.
I was going to give him a 2 also. Please explain your process, your thought process.
All right, well, I thought to myself, and I was like, all right, well, the aliens is certainly an interesting take, and I guess, that could be a way to abduct people. Well, I thought about it, I'm like, wait, no, I know why these stories were written. These stories were to warn sailors of, like, the danger of open sea, that you will go missing sometimes. You always hear about, like, the siren call of the sea.
Yeah, it's that call to abyss we talked about.
People wanting to go out and sail these things, and it's dangerous, and anything can kill you out there because, our stupid fleshy bodies weren't made to be in water for too long. So it's just like, what we talked about with Kelpies. It is a story to help people understand dangers of things.
Sure. And it sounds more fun, for lack of a better word, to say that you were lured to your death by this beautiful mermaid type thing than that there was a storm or a tragedy.
Right, there was a reef you didn't see and it sunk your boat, and you didn't even die. You were just like standing in waist-high water on the reef, but you eventually died because you can't live like that.
Right. That's horrible. That was a terrible thing.
I described a very specific tragedy that happened, but it is one that has happened. So I think that sirens specifically tell a story of like a type of ocean madness.
That makes sense.
Where you essentially are on a boat for too long out in the sea and you eventually go crazy. Some people, particularly if it's their first time going on these long voyages, will succumb to this, but there is a long and documented history of people literally losing their minds at sea.
Right.
And doing things that typically don't make sense for survival, like walking off the side of the ship into the water. And that's pretty much, that's it, right? That's what happens. The siren plays a song, you jump off the side of the boat, and you drowned.
Right.
I was looking up because I knew there had to be a term for it.
And we kept saying seasickness.
I said ocean madness because that's an episode of Futurama.
That makes sense.
And I knew it was in my brain somewhere. But I was looking up to see like what the actual term for it is, and I saw someone say, I thought this was a reputable source. I see now it is Reddit. Sailors call it aqua dementia. And they list off other things that aqua dementia might be called, such as the deep down crazies, the wet willies, and the screaming moist.
No! Not the screaming moist! No!
So yeah, sailors would get the screaming moist, and then people would tell tales of sirens because that made more sense than just they walked off the ship and died.
It does. Oh gosh. I hope people will come back for the next episode after you said screaming moist.
Yeah, that might have not only like driven off listeners, that might have actually killed a few of our listeners.
We're so sorry.
Like a
We are the sirens.
like a power word kill. They just and just died when they heard that string of words.
For the Spotify sirens. Sorry, guys. Well, Clay, this has been fun. Everybody, thank you for listening. And I never know how to end these, Clay.
Goodbye.
Make good choices. We love you. Bye.